What is up, KFit Nation? My name is Kalan Anglos. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The KFit Show. Again, I am an exercise physiology and sports performance expert. I help train as well as educate people on how to live a healthier lifestyle and improve your sports performance. And that's really what the KFit Show is all about. This week, what I'm going to be talking actually a little bit about is some combat sports stuff that's come out. I'm really big into the combat sports. I do a lot of work with combat sports. I put together a fitness test battery. In fact, a little kind of plug here, I will be presenting my research that I've done at the University of Victoria at the CSEP 2017 conference in Winnipeg. So the Canadian Society for Exercise Physiologists, putting on one of the biggest conferences in Canada, and I will be presenting my research that I have done on combat sport athletes. So I do a lot of work with combat sport athletes. I like to dig into combat sports. I like all of the combat sports, all the martial arts. So there's been some recent things that have come out, some tragedies and some announcements. And, I've had lots of people ask me, what are your thoughts on this? What's your take on this? And I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to talk about it on the KFit Show. I'm just going to talk about what I think about what happened and kind of discuss a little bit about a few things that have happened in the combat sports world. So that's what this episode is about in the KFit Show. And this episode is brought to you by Kenzen Sports Karate. On that note, Kenzen Sports Karate is the premier karate and martial arts school in Victoria, British Columbia. Check out kenzensportskarate.ca for all the information there. They do traditional to sports karate. You can go from a white belt, go for your black belt, or you can just go the Olympic stream. They have just a sports karate stream as well, which is really innovative and really cool. So kenzensportskarate.ca, check them out.
The Orion nav transition is complete.
Hello, my name is Kalan Anglos, and I am a certified strength and conditioning specialist. Sounds pretty good, huh?
10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
And this is the KFit Show.
5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
Welcome back on board the KFit Show. Now, usually these episodes, I've gone into some kind of educational talk or some kind of scientific background on how to train and how to perform. And that's what I do as an exercise physiology expert and sports performance expert. I like to train and educate people on the proper way to do things. And that's a lot about what this is. But like I said before, there's been a couple things come up in the combat sports world that I need to discuss, and I think a lot of people have asked, so I'm going to kind of give my opinion on those. So three big stories that have come out in the past week in combat sports, all kind of related around MMA. The first being UFC Hall of Famer, one of the pioneers of the sport, Matt Hughes, was in critical condition. He got hit by a train and was in critical condition in the hospital. He's okay now, but we'll talk about that in a sec. Another one is the death of a UFC fighter in the boxing ring. Tim Hague, a Canadian who has fought all across Canada, fought in the UFC, been a successful martial arts and combat sport athlete, tragically passing away in a fight, not in a fight, but as the result of a brain hemorrhage in a fight. So I want to talk about that a little bit. And of course, we can't talk combat sports news if we're not talking McGregor and Mayweather. The big announcement that came out last week that the fight is on August 26th in Las Vegas, Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather in a boxing fight. So Conor McGregor coming from the UFC and mixed martial arts world, and going to boxing, and it's going to be the biggest fight. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So let's just break down those stories a little bit. So starting with Matt Hughes. So for those of you who isn't familiar, Matt Hughes, one of the pioneers of the sport, one of the best welterweights in the history of the UFC, just randomly in a freak accident got hit by a train and was in serious condition for a little while there. He was in the hospital. They had him I don't think he made it to ICU, but he was in serious condition, and it was looking pretty bleak. And you saw all the UFC fighters, all the MMA fighters sending him their prayers and all that. And it looks like Matt Hughes is going to be okay. So if you're not aware of what happened, Matt Hughes looks like he's going to be okay. But the reason why I wanted to bring up this one here, especially, is because Matt Hughes is somebody who was in the UFC for a long period of time. And of course, not much has come out with the story where he got hit with the train and that kind of thing. And that's, of course, sad. But one thing that really, makes you happy in such a sad time, it's hard to stay happy, but something that you like to see is all the support from the community, from the mixed martial arts world and the UFC world. We're talking people who fought against Matt Hughes, who went up against him, who some of them probably didn't even really like him. Obviously, I don't know Matt Hughes personally, but from what I've seen, he seems to be a nice guy. But some people don't like him, or maybe fought him and think differently of him. But all the community came together to support him in that time of tragedy for him and his family, and he's pulling through. So that's something that you really like to see. So I think that's the lesson there. We have to remember that combat sports, amateur sports, all sports, right, are sports, right? They're just sports. You get fired up with a rivalry with your team or a fighter or an athlete or whatever, and that's my, people like to attach themselves to those. That's my team, that's my fighter, and I hate the guy he's fighting and he's a douche and blah 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 whatever, and I hate that team. But this is just sports we're talking about, right? I mean, I'm a victim of this myself. I'm sure, as most of you know, a die-hard Boston Red Sox fan, and right now they're in the mix with the New York Yankees, which, a little biased opinion, but it's the greatest rivalry in all of sports. So it's easy for me to say, I hate the Yankees, or, I'm obviously in the UFC and all the mixed martial arts. I hate that fighter. And I get carried away with it too. But, at the end of the day, whether you're playing sports, watching sports, following sports, it's just sports, right? They're just games. We all come together when bad things happen, because although you're playing against each other, you might not like a different player or team. They're all in it together, and they're all doing the same thing. And I think that's something that fans especially need to remember. I don't think, most athletes don't have a problem with it. Most athletes recognize and respect their opponents, right? It's usually the fans or the people that watch, the bystanders, that get carried away and forget that, these people these athletes or whatever are just playing the game and just trying to do their best, and sometimes people get carried away. So that's about just all I really wanted to say on that. It's not so much what happened to Matt Hughes. It's great that he's recovering and it looks like he's going to be okay, but the support that he got is what really encouraged me. So let's just kind of remember that in all times, but especially this. And of course the thoughts go out to Matt Hughes. The next story I wanted to talk about, and again, unfortunately, it's another sad story, is the death of the UFC fighter Tim Hague. Ex-UFC fighter. He was fighting out of the UFC. He was actually fighting somebody from Victoria, BC, training out of Zuma. I'm not going to release the name, but Tim Hague, fighting in a boxing match using boxing gloves, took some shots in the head. Obviously, he got knocked out, and afterwards was rushed to the hospital, and he had a brain hemorrhage they found. They tried to fix it. They tried to go in there and release the pressure, but unfortunately, and really tragically, Tim Hague, passed away just the other day from results of a boxing fight. And this is something that really, this is 2017, and I think that we need to be better than this. This can't happen anymore. There has been deaths in boxing fights and in UFC fights, and we're talking head trauma here. We're talking the brain, and we don't know a lot about the brain, but all this CTE stuff that's coming out, all this concussion stuff that's coming out, we know it's not good to take shots in the head. So just a couple things about the Tim Hague incident. Tim Hague before he fought this fight, he fought 6 weeks ago in another boxing match, and he got brutally knocked out in that fight too. 6 weeks ago. Okay, 6 weeks ago he was fighting. Oh, and by the way, that fight 6 weeks ago was a boxing fight, and they were using MMA gloves. So for those of you that don't know, MMA gloves are small 4-ounce gloves. There's not much cushion to them. Boxing gloves are usually they're 10 or 12 ounce. McGregor and Mayweather are fighting 10 ounces, but usually you fight 12-ounce gloves. So quite a bit more cushion, quite a bit bigger. But Tim Hague in this fight 6 weeks ago was using UFC gloves, 4-ounce UFC gloves in a boxing fight. It's I can't remember the promotion. It's called like Battle MMA or something like that, or Extreme MMA or something like that, if it wasn't extreme enough, using the smaller gloves. He got knocked out in that one too, knocked unconscious. And that's serious stuff right there. You get knocked unconscious, you have a head injury, you have head trauma. So 6 weeks later, fast forward, now he's in another boxing match, and this terrible tragedy happens where he gets hit in the head, gets a hemorrhage, and he winds up passing away. You know, I know Tim Hague loves to fight. Obviously, he's been fighting for a long time. But when does somebody step in? And I think this is the coach's responsibility to step in and say, "Hey, man, you just got a head injury. You just got a concussion. You got knocked unconscious 6 weeks ago by a 4-ounce glove. There's no way you should be fighting 6 weeks later, right?" As a coach, you need to be smarter than that. And it's really tough with boxing especially and combat sports especially, because that's how you make your money, right? The more fights you do, the more money you're probably going to get. And if you love to do it, then you want to do it. And I get that. I've been in the combat sports myself, and I get that adrenaline. I get that, the love for the sport. But we need to be smarter than this. We need to look at the evidence that's come out in the CTE and concussion world. We can go into fill our boots with protocols of what to do with a concussion. I'm not going to dive into that on this episode, maybe sometime in the future when we have a concussion expert on. But we need to look at what happens when these kind of situations happen. And so the first thing that I look at is, again, 6 weeks, it's too soon to have another fight unless there was absolutely no damage in the first fight, which wasn't the case, obviously. But if you have a concussion, you need to make sure you are fully repaired, fully healed before you go on to the next fight. If it's not a fight, even if it's a soccer game, right? Soccer's got high probability of concussion, banging the ball with your head, banging heads with other people, knee on head, whatever. It's a problem. Concussions are a serious thing that are just now becoming more serious with this CTE and concussion movie that Will Smith was in and all that kind of stuff that's coming out. We know it's serious, but we need to take it serious. And again, this is where I think the coach should have stepped in and said, "Hey, we can't have you competing. We can't have you getting punched in the head." I mean, I don't even know how he got cleared by a doctor to be able to do this fight. Only 6 weeks ago, he got unconscious. But again, it's amateur sport. Pardon me, clearing my throat here. Yeah, I mean, it's amateur sport and it's fighting, right? So it's tough. And although this kind of stuff can apply to other sports, obviously we're focusing on the combat sports because that's the kind of stuff that's come out. But again, just a terrible tragedy to Tim Hague, and thoughts are with his family for sure in this terrible time. But I think we can use this as a learning process for anybody who's in the combat sports, that we can't take headshots quietly, right? We have to take them seriously. We really, really do. And even if you don't feel you have a concussion, even if you don't feel like you have head trauma, there doesn't have to be a serious blow to your head to do head trauma. And those accumulative effects of getting hit in the head, those are going to add up. And even if you bonk your head on the car door or something like that, that's going to have some effect on you, right? And we're starting to see that in a lot of the concussion research that's coming out. And trust me, there's a lot coming out. So just be careful, guys. I mean, if you're in a combat sport, any other sport, don't mess around with your brain. I mean, come on, it's your brain. It's you need that, right? So I don't know. That's kind of all I wanted to say on that tragedy of Tim Hague. There is a lesson to be learned. It's unfortunate what happened to Tim Hague, and hopefully this never, ever, ever happens again. But there it is. That's my thoughts on the Tim Hague incident, and rest in peace, Tim Hague. Okay, so a couple somber news things. There's a couple tragedies that happened in the combat sports world, but there was one thing that came out that everybody is excited about. And that, of course, is Conor McGregor coming from the UFC world, heading over into the boxing world to face one of the best pound-for-pound fighters of all time, if not the best fighter pound-for-pound, Floyd Mayweather. Okay, this has got everybody buzzing. Boxing fans, UFC fans, fans that don't even watch combat sports are excited about this. August 26th, the boxing fight is finally going down in Las Vegas. 12 rounds of a boxing fight using 10-ounce gloves. Usually boxing fights are 12-ounce for the most part. Using 10-ounce gloves, so a little bit lighter helps McGregor, I guess, a little bit more because he's used to the 4-ounce gloves. But everybody's talking about this fight. I know I train a guy here in Victoria who's been boxing for a little while. As soon as the fight was announced, he said, yeah, I got my tickets and I'm on my way. Like, everybody is fired up about this fight. It's going to be the biggest, I've called it the biggest sporting event of all time. Since then, I've kind of corrected myself. Muhammad Ali Rumble in the Jungle, probably a little bit more theatrical, probably a little bit bigger. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. The pay-per-view numbers are absolutely going to be the most for McGregor and Mayweather out of any sport ever, I think. I think this is absolutely going to blow records apart. Right now, early reports have Floyd Mayweather making $100 million just to show up. Just to show up and hang out and fight 12 rounds or however long it lasts. And McGregor, it sounds like he's going to make $100 million at the end of it all. So, I mean, there's still fight bonuses on top of that, sponsorships, all that kind of stuff. Interesting enough for Conor McGregor, too. So for those of you that don't know, the UFC is exclusively sponsored by Reebok. It was a deal they had a couple years ago. Terrible deal. Not a good idea for the UFC or for Reebok, but it happened. And this fight is not under those banners. So Conor McGregor can go and get his own sponsorship deals, which is huge for him. So he's going to make a boatload of money. Mayweather's going to make a boatload of money. And the thing for me, and I'll kind of break down what I think is going to happen in the fight in a sec, but before we get there, the thing for me is Conor McGregor has never made this kind of money in the UFC before. He's broken UFC records, absolutely, for pay-per-view and the money that he's brought in, but he's never made a close to $100 million for any UFC fight. And now here he is in his first boxing fight, his first professional boxing fight, raking in about $100 million estimated. So my thinking is, well, why is Conor McGregor even going to go back to the UFC? Right? He's a money fighter, and this is a money fight. And Conor McGregor is getting money to go to boxing. So why would he opt to go back to the UFC to make less money when he can make more money in boxing? We know that this is going to be Floyd Mayweather's, well, I guess we don't know for sure, but I would take a good guess that this is going to be Floyd Mayweather's final boxing fight. Right now, Floyd Mayweather is 49-0. Okay, 49 wins and 0 losses, which currently ties him for the best all-time with Rocky Marciano, who also is 49-0. So those two are top. So we know that Floyd Mayweather, if he goes into this boxing match and he wins, he becomes 50-0. He, record-wise, is the best boxer of all time. So, just a prediction on my part, I predict he's going to go in there. I think Floyd Mayweather will probably win the fight. He'll be 50-0. He'll hold the record, and then he'll retire. I mean, he's already retired once before, but he's coming back for this fight, obviously, for that kind of money. But I think he's going to win, and I think he's going to retire after that. So we know this is the last fight for Floyd Mayweather. So boxing desperately is going to need a superstar, somebody that they can use as a draw, because believe it or not, boxing, there's more money in boxing, promotional money. Obviously, they're getting $100 million per fight, but there's not as many eyes, I don't think, and there's not as many people, looking at it, I don't think, in the mainstream world. Just this past weekend, there was two of the best boxers, certainly of this era and almost of all time, Kovalev versus Andre Ward. That was a great fight, and it got absolutely no hype. No hype whatsoever. Kovalev versus Ward 2. The first fight was phenomenal. This second fight was quite good as well. And that fight got absolutely no coverage. It was all Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, which to me didn't make sense. As a boxing fan, I mean, I watch boxing, so I guess I knew about it. But we know that boxing doesn't have the superstars that are in the limelight all the time. So really, they're begging for somebody, and who bigger name in the combat sports world right now than Conor McGregor? And again, he's going to be making more money than ever before. My expectation is they're going to throw the book at him and say, "Hey, man, you can come to boxing and make this kind of money almost every single fight, or you can go back to UFC, where you're already the champion. You're already one of the best of all time, and." What do you want to do? Make less money, or do you want to make more money? So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Obviously, there's still a lot that is going to happen between now and then, August 26th, when that fight happens. But, that's what I think. That's what I think is going to happen. But what's going to happen in the fight? Now, again, it's a little early. I think right now The most exciting part about this fight will be the hype. And the trash talk. I mean, already McGregor has been trash talking. Same with Mayweather. They've been trash talking each other back and forth. But I think that's going to be the extent of the fight in terms of how exciting it is. If you've watched Mayweather's fights before, he's very elusive. He's kind of a boring fighter. A lot of people tuned in for the Mayweather versus Pacquiao fight, Manny Pacquiao, which was at the time, one of the biggest sporting and combat sport events of all time, for sure. But it didn't live up to the hype. It just really didn't. Mayweather is a defensive fighter who stays out of range, picks his points, and that's it. He's not a knockout artist, which Conor McGregor, is. And it should also be noted, too, Conor McGregor is coming to boxing, but he's been a boxer before. He started his martial arts journey in karate, and then he got into amateur boxing after that, and then transitioned into UFC and MMA. But he has boxing experience. He used to be a boxer, so it's not like he's never been there before. What was I saying on that note? I can't remember. But anyways, Mayweather, I think in the fight he's just going to dance around, stay away. I think in the first couple of rounds, you're going to see McGregor come out and really try and push the pressure on Mayweather. McGregor is going to come out and push the pressure on Mayweather. And Mayweather is going to know that. I think part of his game plan is going to be just to stick away, keep him at bay, and then at the later rounds really just start to pick him off and pick some points. But, I mean, don't get yourself fooled. Even though I think Mayweather will win and he'll probably win by decision quite easily, this is not an easy fight for him. McGregor is a serious knockout artist. Also, McGregor is a southpaw. Okay, he fights left-handed, and that's something that Mayweather has had problems with before, is fighting southpaw fighters. So, it only takes one of McGregor's big punches to catch you, and it's lights out, right? So that could happen. But what my prediction is right now at this point is that Mayweather will win unanimously by decision. He'll win, 9 out of the 12 rounds, I think. He'll win, and he will be 50-0, and then he will retire, and they'll both make lots of money, and that will be that. Okay? It's kind of what a lot of people are predicting, I think, so I'm not going off the books too much here. But I do think, like I said, Conor McGregor is going to stick around in the boxing world for a little while, so that's what I think. Still lots to happen between now and then, and lots more stuff. Stay tuned to all of their trash talk, because that's going to be where the money's made, so to speak, and that's going to be where the fun happens for sure. So keep your eye on that trash talk. And fight August 26th. It's going to be good, and the whole world will be watching. Okay, so that's my breakdown right now on the McGregor and Mayweather, fight that'll be coming up August 26th. Okay. Anyways, guys, this was the KFit Show. I appreciate you guys listening in every single week, and this might not be your typical KFit Show. Guess what? I don't care. It's my show. I like to talk about stuff that I like to talk about, and I think this is important because it's in the news right now in the combat sports world. People know I'm into combat sports. They've asked me questions about it. So this is just where I can go, hey, go listen to this episode. This answers all your questions on all of those topics. Also, I think it's important too because it's going to bring the whole sporting world is going to have their eyes on Mayweather and McGregor especially. And it's going to perform. They have to go out there and perform like any other sporting athlete. So, bringing it full circle here on the KFit Show. Just remember that these guys are athletes, and they're going to bring a show. So there you go. Again, thanks for tuning in this week, guys. Next week, we'll break down a little bit more of the actual science behind training and performing. But this week, I really wanted to talk about all this news because it's just come out. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in to the KFit Show. My name is Kalan Anglos. You can catch me at Kalan Anglos on all the social media stuff. KFit Conditioning by Kalan Anglos on Facebook. I got YouTube videos coming out, all that kind of stuff. Tune in for all of that. And these come out Wednesday mornings. Make sure to subscribe, comment, review. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you next week. I'm out.